Landlords can be liable for dog bites. Hi guys.
This has pretty much been explained.
Jonathon Daily.
Dog bite liability for a landlord. My client's the landlord here. What happened, without getting into too many details, is that my client did everything right. They had renters vetted, they had their pets vetted, they even called the prior landlord to make sure there was no history of dog bites or aggressive behavior in these dogs, approved the dogs, approved the renters, have documentation of all of that, got landlord liability insurance. However, on page 72, of course, you gotta love insurance companies, on page 72 there was an exclusion for dog bites, so there was no coverage in this case, hence them hiring me because they didn't have an insurance lawyer to actually defend them in this action, so they had to hire little old poor me over here to help out. So what is the law in Florida? The law in Florida is that landlords can be liable for dog bites, but they need to have actual knowledge of the dog's dangerous propensity. So dog bite cases are pretty big in Florida because there is strict liability for the dog owner. Strict liability meaning you can't really get out of it. There's not really much of a defense. If your dog bites somebody, you're strictly liable. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's an oversimplification of it, but at the end of the day, that's the best way to describe it for layman's purposes. Is strict liability. You're liable. Your dog did it, regardless of anything else. So in this case, there is no strict liability for the landlord, but if they can show that there's actual knowledge of the dangerous propensity of the dog, then they could potentially have a case against my clients. However, they failed to even allege that properly in the complaint, so we're filing a motion to dismiss. I think the attorneys for the child that was bitten in this case, they know that the landlords aren't liable. They're just including them because it's the right thing to do as a lawyer, is to include anyone who could potentially be liable, because right now they're really just focusing on arguing with the insurance company for the renters who are strictly liable and going back and forth about the monetary amount. It's really all it comes down to. So my clients unfortunately got caught up in the crosshairs because there's potential liability, but they know if we actually had to go through discovery and go through with a trial that there's little to no doubt that my clients are not going to be liable because they did everything right. They literally vetted and looked at these dogs and called the prior landlords. There were no issues. There's no vet history of violent behavior from these dogs. So no, there's no liability on part of the landlords.
For the latest in case updates, legal tips, news, and politics, make sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and our other socials, and above all, subscribe on YouTube to get your dose of excellence on a daily basis.